Hello and welcome to Smooth Musings, the podcast of Smooth Fusion. And today we're going to show you an overview of Sitefinity. And with me, I've got Dylan Echols, our president. I'm Todd Knowlton, CEO here. And so we're just going to keep this pretty simple today. We just thought it'd be a good time to give an overview of the latest version of Sitefinity, just to give you a lay of the land of where things are. And so, Dylan, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, today I'm going to show a little bit about getting acquainted with your Sitefinity website, just where the different components live within the backend, and as a content editor or another role, you may need to find different elements within the application. So the first thing is whenever you're trying to log into Sitefinity, by default, the URL is just going to be /Sitefinity right after your domain. Some organizations do customize that and change it, or they have it IP restricted, in which varies organization to organization. But once you hit this page, you'll be presented with the login. Just enter your email address, your username, or your username and your password. And once you log in, the first thing that you'll see is the dashboard for the website. So the dashboard's great because it shows all of the latest content that's been published on the website, whether by you or other users. You can filter it down to your own content, so you can maybe pick up on something that you were working on previously. And you can also configure other widgets for this page, just like analytics, so you can monitor the visits for your website, or SEO descriptions for pages, is what we have here. And you can also manage the dashboard through up here, which you can remove components or add components to it. Some of the other elements on this page are like the getting started resources. So maybe you're learning how to create a page or content of some particular type. You've got quick access to guides here. And then system status is also a very handy item because it may show you updates on your license. It may show you errors that are occurring on the site, or anything else that might be pertaining to Sitefinity overall in their intentions, as you can see here with web forms being deprecated. So this is the typical landing page, but up here at the top, you've got your navigation for the backend, which you've got your access to site settings and multi-site settings. You've got your pages where you manage the creation, order, and editing of all of your pages. The content drop down for any of your dynamic content that may be featured on the site. Access to your templates, the administration for creating users and these different elements, and then marketing for things like personalization or A/B testing. And if for ever a reason to alter your profile, you can also access that here. And so we'll go into each one of these for a little bit and just kind of give a high-level overview. And so as I mentioned, if your site is a multi-site, you'll see a list of all of the different websites that exist here. Otherwise, you can go to Manage Sites, and it'll also display a list of the different websites that you have on the same instance of Sitefinity.
Let's talk about that for a second, Dylan. So it'll actually allow you, if you've got license for it all, you could be managing two completely different domain names through the same instance. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. And some organizations might manage dozens of different applications within the same Sitefinity instance.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the handy features of that is that to reduce some of the redundancy between the applications, you can actually share different modules across those different websites. So maybe it's libraries, maybe it's content blocks, news, blogs, or anything along those lines. And your custom modules that you may need for your website would appear here as well. And you can access some additional things like permissions, like setting permissions for the applications in some of your users or different properties. Maybe you have deprecated a domain and you need it to redirect to this one. You can manage it here as like an alias. But largely, whenever you're setting up a site, these elements aren't touched too frequently after that initial setup. And so if we'll go back a little bit, and we can jump into the pages. The pages is going to be the area content editors probably find themselves the most, because it's where you're going to be creating content, or pages, creating content, updating content, reordering your navigation, many different elements that involve your pages and their structure. So what you see here is a list of all of the pages on the website. And if your website is using the Sitefinity navigation by default, the order of the hierarchy within this page is going to be what's depicted on your front end of your website to users. One thing that's great about this is that you can select multiple elements, and you can also go into reorder and just drag and drop different component pages around. So if you need to reorder your navigation. Before we
And
jump
so
in,
the ones that are, it looks like there's pages accumulated underneath, like what we do. So that's all the different pages under there. Okay.
yeah, and we'll talk about the different page types that are available as well. So still at a high level, some of the other handy options here are maybe you have different role-based access for your system or pages or content editing. You can specify those permissions here over on the right, or whether there's custom fields on your page, maybe you have some open graph fields that you use, or some of the different SEO descriptions that you want to add to your pages. You can add those fields here within the custom fields, and you don't ever need a developer for that. And then if let's say you're editing pages, or you've built a page and you're just not happy with it and you want to delete it and start over, well, those pages will end up in the recycle bin, which you can restore in the future if you need to. Maybe you accidentally deleted something. And so we won't go into the actual page editing experience on this video, but what we can do is take a look at some of the fields and the user interface that are available to you. And so before we jump into an actual page, over here on the right are different actions that you can perform with the page. Maybe you want to go directly to the page for editing. Maybe there's meta properties for that page that you want to edit, or you want to unpublish it, or even schedule the publish date or unpublished date. That can be done here. And quite a very convenient tool that Sitefinity offers is the duplicate ability, because maybe you have several pages you're needing to make. They're all resemble each other. Well, you create that first page, you can duplicate it and start editing it on the next pages rather than having to start from scratch again. And so before we jump into the content editing, I'm going to show the metadata for the page. And so whenever you're creating a page, this top half of the fields are what presented to you. And so you can title your page here, which by default is what's going to be your URL for the page as well. But let's say you're not happy with that URL structure, it gives you the option to edit just that one aspect of your URL, or you can edit the entire structure of the URL. And you can also choose whether this page might live under another page or be at the top level of your navigation. And you can even choose to show it in the navigation or not show it in the navigation. Perhaps you're running a marketing campaign, you're driving people to a certain page and you don't want it in the navigation. That would be a way to exclude it, so you're removing it from that. And I mentioned a few minutes ago about how there are different page types. So you have your standard page type, which is what the page is going to be created by default, but you also have the option to make this a group page or a redirect page. And what a group page is it's not a page itself, it'll still have a URL, but it'll default to the first page under it. And you may use a group page just for organization, which you might have seen within our page tree, and I can go back to and show. Redirect to another page, this is also a handy function. And so some different use cases for this may be that you're trying to drive users to a specific document in an email campaign or something like that. And instead of sending the long email address with all of the file structure of for the document, you can change that to a redirect to another page, and you can make it a custom domain just like file, and it can be that short and it'll redirect to that document rather than having to deal with URL rewrites within the configs or sending out that long URL. You can also set additional URLs for your page. And so, like, similar to that same concept of using it for marketing campaigns, maybe you do want your landing page for some product to have the full URL, but you have 3 or 4 different URLs you're using within your marketing campaign, and you can set those as additional URLs as well. And then for your metadata, so for search engines, what you want to appear within Google, results. You can change the title for the page here, and you can put in a description as well. Otherwise, if you leave these blank, it'll just it won't leave you with empty fields within the search results. It will instead just default to the page title and then the first HTML that appear on the page. And so maybe you've inherited a website with hundreds of pages and you're focusing on your priority ones. You might go in and focus on updating the descriptions and titles for the ones that you find most important. You'll also have an option to add the page to the search index or not. And so again, maybe it's a marketing campaign and you want it hidden from your search results on your website. This would be the method that you could do so here. There are some additional fields down here that you may alter periodically or on setup of your web pages, but we won't go into those. So that was your pages, titles, and properties, but now you can take a look at what that page building experience actually looks like. And so with this version of Sitefinity, so this is Sitefinity version 15.2, which is one of the later versions that supports .NET Core, and this site is converted to .NET Core rather than VC or web forms. And so the user interface may look different if you are using a version earlier than 14.4 or 15. And so landing on this page, you can see that over here we have a map or a list of all of the page structure and the hierarchy of it, so that you can easily navigate from section to section. You can see that on hover, you can highlight the widgets so that you can then edit them. You can add additional widgets here, which we won't go into creating these components, but just showing off this select widget list. You can see a list of all of the widgets that are available for your application. And then once you go in and set those on the page, they may also offer you template selection. And it's all click and drag and drop essentially. So it's a very easy to use interface. I think one of the most handy functions of this .NET Core version of Sitefinity is actually that it allows you to combine multiple elements into a single section preset is what it's called, so that maybe you're repurposing a structure of content or specific content across your site, rather than having to drag and drop 3 different content blocks onto the page or image widgets and things like that. You can actually convert an entire section into a section preset, which is what you kind of see here. So if we were to convert this section into a section preset, it would bring all of these different elements, all of their style, all of their content and everything into whatever page you wanted to add it to.
Yeah, and I'll add, that's really handy because, so this, as you can tell, is our own website. And we do have quite a number of section presets created. And when we are building out a new page, it's just, it really does speed the creation of that page. And it creates consistency, right? Because that means we're using consistent, layouts as we go through.
Yeah, no, you don't have to worry about missing any of the classes on all the different elements that go into those section presets. So this is a quick overview of just what the page editing experience looks like and where you might be spending most of your time. Up here in the top right, again, just like on that landing page for the pages list, you can access the titles and properties here, or even the revision history. So maybe you made a change to the web page on accident, or you were working on it and then you accidentally published it instead of save as draft. You can go into revision history and revert it to the previous version of the page prior to making that change. So there's a lot of safety nets in place to allow you to make changes without much risk.
Yeah, and that comes in handy.
Yeah, and you can also it has a preview function as well. So before you publish your page, you can also have a look at what it might look like on publish.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to that page tree, and I'll mention one more time the various types of pages. So as I alluded to, the group page, you can see those here, how we're using what we do, who we serve, our thinking. These are group pages with a variety of different pages underneath. So for who we serve, it's marketers, IT agencies, And these are the pages that will still appear in the navigation, the who we serve, what we do. But again, by default, it'll load into the first child page of that section.
And that's a good example right there, Dylan, is that industry specializations page is a page that isn't ready to be published yet, but it's still there. We're getting it ready. As soon as it's ready and we hit publish, that's going to be added to the navigation and it's going to be right there ready to go. So super easy to
Exactly.
use.
Yeah. And then the second most common area you might find yourself as a content editor, or somebody who manages the web application is here in the content menu option. And so with the dynamic content on your website, these are going to be features where, like your blog, for example, where you have a structure to your content that you're creating a lot of content for or frequently. So rather than having to recreate your a new page for each of your blog posts. What this does is you've got your template that's been stylized, and then you've got your structured content or the dynamic content where you're just going in and populating fields. And then on the page, however you have that widget configured, the blog widget configured to pull in all of the latest blog posts, or maybe it's based on categories or tags or anything along those lines, those will just automatically be shown to front end users without you having to go in and click publish on the page every single time you roll out a new post. And also, if you have custom content types, let's say you're a bank and you have ATM machines, a map of ATM machines, you could come in here and you would be able to manage that or connect it even to a third-party system to automatically pull that data in. And so we'll take a look at a couple of these out of the box dynamic modules just to show a little bit of the interface. And so there's two aspects to a blog. There's the blog itself, and then there's the blog posts. And so you can have an infinite number of blogs on your website, and maybe you do this to silo the different aspects of your business. And so maybe you're a bank and you have commercial loans and you've got private loans, or maybe you specialize in vehicle loans or anything along those lines. If you want to separate all of your content based on that, then what you can do here is create separate blogs for those different things. And as I was describing a moment ago about auto publish with your blogs, so that you may set up a blog on a certain page for each of your blogs, and then you could have that automatically pull in your posts just simply because it's based on the same topic. And maybe you're a little more reserved about the auto updates for certain blogs, but not others. And so you can manage each one independently. In this, what I want to show here is just at a high level for the blog itself, you have a lot of the similar fields that you would have for the page editing experience. So you can specify the URL for that blog. You can specify the title or description that's used within search results, or even social media when it's shared, even in the image or video that are used whenever those blogs are actually shared across your different media outlets. And you can go into these blogs a little bit further, and this is where you'll actually see all of the posts that you've created and that you can manage independently. So again, showing a little bit more about the interface. Go into the content. You can see you've got your title of your blog, you've got the body of your blog, you've got the summary, and perhaps this is what's shown on your blog post list page, where you've got a list of all of your blogs before people go into the articles. You can control the summary from here, the categories and tags as well, additional URLs for those things, and then also, again, custom fields like your descriptions or the author or tags that you're trying to use, and different images that may be associated with it, like on the blog landing page, on the hero for the page, what's shared to social media. So it's quite flexible, and whatever your needs really are for your blogs or your content, Sitefinity is quite robust and flexible to be able to handle those kinds of things. And I think that's kind of one of the main positives or benefits of Sitefinity, is just how flexible it can be to the varying customers or industries that utilize it. And so with, I showed blogs because that's what we have the most content in, but with like news and events, those are also going to be very similar interfaces, where you have a list of fields that you're using to create your dynamic content. And then we've got some other pretty standard content types like images, videos, and documents and files, which is what they sound like. It's a library structure of all of your images or your documents, and you can organize it as you see fit. And these ones are pretty simple, but you can also, again, go in. There are fields with each of the images that you can alter, like alt text for your image or the actual title or just various things like the URL too. Another great option in with Sitefinity is the forms. And so you can create your forms with this simple builder of dragging and dropping the fields onto the page or onto your form that you're creating, set up the requirements, whether it's a required field, you can set the message that's shown to users if they're not completing all of the required fields. And if you use a third-party system like Salesforce or HubSpot to gather customer information, you can tie these forms directly to those, so all of your information is being fed to your sort of core system for customer management. Probably the most popular component within this list is going to be content blocks. And as we showed you on the page, most pages are built largely with content blocks, and then a few custom components. But content blocks is a rich text editor that allows you to just use text, use images, use videos, reformat. It accepts HTML and CSS. But the reason that content blocks appear under this option is because you can create an independent content block, but then you can also share that content block across multiple pages, just like the section preset, rather than having to create that section over and over and over again. Let's say you have a CTA. Well, you could share that as a shared content block and then be able to just drop a new content block on your page, click the edit button and select use shared, and it'll give you this list of all of the content blocks that exist here.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, like, where that really comes in handy, especially for folks with large sites, the more you can use content blocks and shared content blocks, the easier it is to update things. So, like, say, if your call to action, you decide to tweak the messaging there or something, you go change it in the shared content block, and every page throughout the site that uses it is updated, and you're not having to worry about finding every page where it exists and updating it 12 different times or whatever.
Absolutely. It can save you a lot of time. And that's what most of the content options are. If you
Let's
not
talk about
everything, yeah.
can we talk about tags and classification, because that's the taxonomy stuff is really cool.
Yeah. What's great about the classifications, so again, classifications are tags and categories. So you can see both of them in a single list, but you can also go directly one to the other because maybe you have dozens of them and you don't want to look through all the categories and tags, but you just want to look through one. You can go into those directly. And so,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
so what are the kinds of things we can tag or classify? Pretty much anything?
Yeah, pretty much anything will allow you to use tags or classifications. Some of the out-of-the-box components that always use uh, tags or categories are going to be like blogs or news or events, where you can tie in certain tags or categories, and then you might have a filter element on the front of your page that ties into those categories and tags, so that users can go directly to what they're looking for. But then also on the back end with the content editing experience, just as with the blog as the example, drop the blog widget on the page, and let's say this page is dedicated to insurance coverage for homes. Well, you may have home insurance as a category or as a tag. You select that within that widget designer, you would select that category, and then it'll by default is just pull in all of the blogs that feature that tag. So rather than having to go and spend
Yeah.
time individually clicking, it's just pulls it in pretty dynamically.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's
I
very
know one of
handy.
the areas we've used that is, and with a lot of our customers as well, is if you do have a large amount of blogs, for instance, and you have them well tagged and categorized, then like when you go to a particular page of the website, you can feature blogs at the bottom of the page that might be of interest to someone who's viewing that particular page. So it's, like, so in the example of like a bank, if they're on the mortgage page, at the bottom of the page, there's some suggested blog posts, and all you have to do is say, surface the ones that are that are tagged as mortgage related. And so
Yeah,
just allows you to do a lot of updating of content just sort of happens automatically if you're doing good tagging.
yeah, and it gives you a lot of control as well.
Yeah.
And so the next item in the list is design. And as a content editor, you might not be altering these too frequently. A lot of these are updated as the site's created or new page templates are added to your website, so your developer may find themselves in here more than other areas of the website. So at a high level, you've got your page templates, which we'll take a look at. You've got your widget templates, you've got section presets, and then you've got another option here for responsive and mobile design. And so page templates, just for a little basic understanding, is going to be the foundation of the front end of your website, essentially. So you'll feature your navigation, your header, your footer, any element that's going to persist across all of your pages. Those are good elements to put within your page template. But another great aspect of your page template is that you might have your main template that features all of these things, but then you've got say a dozen pages on your website that you want to have this layout with 3 columns, and then you have another one you want to have 2 columns or 4 columns, or just a variety of different layouts. Well, you can take your main template, that one that kind of has an empty body, and you can duplicate it, and then you can go and set up the different layouts that you're looking to use when you're actually building a page. And you can see here that we've got, I guess we're using about 2 or 3, but we've got, most of our website is a singular column. But if instead of having to go in page by page and alter the layout, if you have a consistent layout that you would like to use or a few different consistent layouts you like to use, Sitefinity will allow you to do so efficiently by creating those new page templates. And I'll click into one here just real quick to show what that template looks like. It's going to look exactly like the page editing experience. And this is our old template, actually. So ignore that part.
That's an MVC template, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's the MVC template from
Yeah.
before we
So
upgraded to .NET Core. Let's go right here where you can see the number of pages used. So now it'll look like the page building experience. So as I mentioned, you've got your header that's already in here. You've got your footer that's already in here as well. And so any changes you make here on the template will persist across all of the pages that also use that page template. And let's go back again. Another section we'll look at in this list is the section presets. So as we mentioned, it's a very handy tool for building out pages and managing content, especially if you want that consistency across all of your pages. We've got several of them, or a handful of them, that already exist within here. And so let's do call to action block. And so it'll show you an example of what that section preset looks like, and it'll give you an option to title it. So that way, when you're on your page and you're building it out and you want to pull in a section preset, you know exactly which one you're looking for. And again,
yeah, and it's actually even easier when you're actually building a page, because then you can browse the section presets in a view that you can actually see them better.
yeah,
So
good because again, one of Sitefinity or Progress's main approaches to Sitefinity is making sure that the content editing experience is intuitive, it is quick, and easy to manage for content editors or different roles who might find themselves within here. The next navigation option listed is going to be administration. And so as a content editor, you might not find yourself in this section as frequently as maybe a developer or an IT manager might find themselves. But this is where you'll create your users, you'll create your roles and the permissions for each of those roles. And so the reason you may have roles within your content management system is you have content editors, you have approvers, and then you have other management aspects. And so you have a workflow that your content might go through before it's actually published on the website. And so you could assign these different users, these different roles, so that they're only seeing the areas of the Sitefinity website that they need to see and that they need to manage. And again, then the
and workflows are really cool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Another area that is very popular within this administration is settings. And again, this is mostly going to be for developers, but you can handle your maybe things like site sync connection. Maybe you're using a third-party provider like Microsoft or the Azure Blob Storage for your database of images and files. You can access all of those things here. But again, content editors might not be using this area so much. Another thing that does come up from time to time for content editors or anyone managing a website is seeing what version of Sitefinity they're on. Maybe they need to remind themselves of who the license owner is, or what domains are allowed on the license, or what modules you have available to your license. So the versioning and licensing page here will show you all of that information. So up here at the top, you can see the type of license you have, the version you're on, what are the domains that appear on your license, what are the modules you have access to, and then maybe you've added a new domain to your license and you need to update the license. You can also do so here. Or maybe even renewals, you would do so there. Other areas of this that content editors may find themselves in is site sync. We're on the production site right now, so you won't really see much here. But if I were on the staging environment, when I click site sync, it would take me to a list of all of the changes that have been made on the website, and then I could select individually what I want to push to my production environment. Another way to control or mitigate risk when you're publishing content. I'm trying to think if there's some other elements, but much of this stuff is again going to pertain more so to developers or IT managers, like module builders. If you need to create a custom module, this is where you might manage the fields that are available to users. Just like on the blog, we saw a list of fields that you populate. This module builder would allow you to add additional fields to that.
So yeah, let's talk about workflow for just a second. We don't need to go into it in depth, but just so people understand, you can set up workflows to where certain individuals are able to build and make changes to pages when instead of them having a publish button, theirs goes to like an approval process. And then maybe someone who's, someone else in their organization takes it from there. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's just another form of content control. This is probably more popular at larger companies, just who have more staff members who are going to be participating in the website or managing their department's area of the website and content. But then maybe you have some people within an editing position who like to review the content before it goes out. Maybe that's a public, an announcement, some sort of product announcement or some sort of PR announcement. You would see here, you could come in here and you could set up the different levels of the content review process before publishing. And so you've got create, send for approval, and publish. It's probably more so used at smaller teams. 2 levels, you get send for approval, send for publishing, and then somebody who has the authority to publish, and then another 3rd level. that has even more levels of review and publishing. Or you can have no approval workflow at all and just allow someone to create pages and then publish them immediately.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's very handy for controlling your content on your website. The last area I'm going to show is the marketing area of the application. So the three most frequently used things in this tab are going to be personalization, A/B testing, and accessing your Sitefinity Insight instance. Email campaigns, it is a component that people use, but quite often organizations will have their own sort of email marketing software that they're using. And you can integrate different ones within Sitefinity, but largely many companies will use a third-party application. Personally, what I find to be one of the coolest aspects of Sitefinity is the personalization. Because what this allows is, rather than having a singular experience for all of your users, regardless of if you have different profiles or not, what you can do is create different experiences for each of those users. And so where using the bank as an example is, again, you may have residential or private citizens who are looking for a bank. Maybe you're an organization and you're looking for a bank, and then your website has a loan page. Well, rather than sending those users who are commercial users to the private banking page, what you could do is have a singular page, and then you could personalize either the entire page or just singular widgets within the page, so that whenever a user who matches some criteria visits that page, then they're getting the most applicable messaging to them. And I'll go a little bit more into what the personalization looks like. And so it starts out pretty simple. You got your name, your description, and this is mostly for your backend users to know which segment is which. But where it comes in real handy is the characteristics. So you've got your segment. Maybe you're a bank that offers services in California, Nevada, and Washington and Oregon. And you want to show different loan rates or something like that to those audiences. You could come in here and you can define the characteristics of that segment. It could be based on IP addresses or ranges for certain areas, or a specific location like a city or a country or a region. And you can also do other things, like if you're running a marketing campaign for certain audiences, you can set referral URLs or landing URLs. And where this comes in handy is that, let's say you're running a commercial banking marketing campaign and you're giving them a landing page URL. Those people hit the email campaign, the link in the email campaign, they're taken to this page. Now they're put into this segment because they've hit that page. And let's say that you have 2 or 3 other pages that you're trying to drive them to for more information. Well, you could personalize those additional pages or areas of those pages so that the users are seeing the most applicable content to them. And there are a variety of other characteristics as well that are there by default. The other handy ones are like Sitefinity Insight. If you're using that and you've set up your personas, you can be targeting content at the proper personas, rather than just bulk messaging everyone with things that are irrelevant to them. This really allows you to target your communication and your efforts to different audiences.
Cool. So let's talk about A/B testing real quick before we wrap up here. Tell us how easy that is to do.
Yeah, so A/B testing is actually pretty similar to personalization in the editing of the management experience. Many organizations use A/B testing just to test their messaging, test their imaging, test the layout of the different pages across different audiences. And so you can create a test version of a page. And so maybe, again, you're running a marketing campaign, and you're trying out red backgrounds versus blue backgrounds, or some different kinds of messaging or imagery, where you could choose your page that you're driving people to. And as you can see here, it calls out being personalized. This is personalized, so you can't A/B test it, because obviously if you have varying versions of that page, you're not able to really test them in that same manner. So if you have a marketing landing page, is probably the most relevant, which would be you're trying to test out two different forms of your messaging, and you want to see how each of those perform and with conversions. And so you can even distribute the traffic that you want going to each of these pages and goal
And
and
then
start dates.
it'll actually tell you, or where would you come back to find out the effectiveness? Would that be here or over in Insight?
You would come in here, I believe. I'm trying to recall the
So, like for
results.
instance, I know in Insight it'll show you that, but for one way you could do it is maybe you have two different forms on two different pages, and so you go back in your data and look how many of variation 1 were filled out versus variation 2, and that's some indication of the effectiveness of the two pages.
Yeah, that's correct. It'll surface that information for you in
Yeah,
Insight, and you can click results here, which I'm not currently logged into. But yeah, it'll show you what the performance of each version of those pages.
yeah.
And so to kind of summarize some of these things, I think one of again the major benefit of Sitefinity is the content editing experience, the management experience of your website. It's just at the forefront of their design for Sitefinity, and their future plans for it is just to reduce content editors' dependency on developers or IT individuals so that they can more freely make updates to their website.
Yeah, and so obviously we went through kind of a high level overview of everything. You can see that there's a lot to Sitefinity, but it's also really intuitive and easy to use. But thanks, Dylan, for showing us around. We'll do a future version of this where we dive in a little deeper to page building and let you see how to build and edit content on pages, which I think is a great thing to see as well. But if we can help you in any way, answer any questions about Sitefinity, if you'd ever want to see a demo in person, just reach out to us. We'd be happy to show you more about the platform. We're big fans here at Smooth Fusion. So thanks for joining us today. If you feel like it, please like and subscribe. We want to make sure you're getting notifications on the new content as we put it out. We've got this podcast. We also have the Sitefinity Minute, which is a very brief video that we put out regularly to kind of share a little tips or tricks or news about what's going on in the Sitefinity world. So love for you to subscribe to that as well, and keep an eye on our blogs because we put those out as well. But thanks for joining us today here on Smooth Musings, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Smooth Musings. If you liked today's episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone, and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast is presented by Smooth Fusion. If you'd like more information about Smooth Fusion and how we help our customers with websites, custom software, and more, go to www.smoothfusion.com.